Good afternoon, South Africa. Welcome to Afternoon Express. We're live on SABC 3. How are you, Danilo?
I'm doing so good, thanks, Bonnie. You look amazing, brother. This new
Thank
hair
you.
of yours, this new look is completely changing things up. It's
My
nice
vintage
to be,
vibe.
I know, it's really the middle of the week and everyone's getting ready for a brand new sort of like downhill towards the rest of the weekend. But today we get to tackle something that I think is very serious.
Absolutely. Today we're tackling a topic that is usually shied away from, but it's really important. And it's very much still stigmatized in South Africa, the sex industry. South Africa has a thriving underground sex trade, and because it's completely illegal, sex workers' rights are not protected at all, and their health and safety are always at risk.
Indeed. So the question we're asking today is, will decriminalizing the sex industry be beneficial for the more than 150,000 South Africans who make their living in this industry?
Absolutely.
Joining the conversation is Nosipho Vidima from the Sex Workers Education and Advocacy Taskforce, and they are campaigning to legalize and decriminalize, to be specific, the sex industry. So share your thoughts with us on social media today. We'd love to hear from you. It's a topic that I think is going to cause a lot of conversation with you at home too. Hashtag Afternoon Express. The question we're asking is, do you think that sex workers will ever receive the same rights as other professionals? We'd really like to hear your thoughts with us. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, hashtag Afternoon Express.
This is your chance to win the home you've always dreamed of. SA's favorite interior design reality competition, Win a Home, sees 3 design duos transform empty spaces into lavish homes, and one of them could be yours. To enter, visit privateproperty.co.za and vote for your favorite design duo. Put yourself in line to win amazing prizes in the bi-weekly draw and automatically be entered for a chance to win the grand prize, your choice of one of 3 fully furnished designer homes in the Eye of Africa Golf and Residential Estate in the south of Joburg. The finished property will include luxurious finishes by Plascon and Caesarstone, as well as premier home appliances by Grundig, with a total prize value of more than 3 million rand. Competition details plus T's and C's can be found on the private property website. Watch the breathtaking properties come to life as the design drama unfolds, and stand a chance to win the biggest prize on South African television, your very own dream home.
So I mentioned earlier on that with the conversation that's being had on the show today, you can share your thoughts with us on social media. But I'd also love to hear your thoughts on the phone lines. They are officially open, and that number that you should have on your mobiles at the moment is 021 430 9881. It's 021 430 9881. Share your thoughts with us. Our lines are open. Well, on the show today, we're also going to be making something delicious to get you ready for dinner this evening. And Clem has got an amazing recipe planned for us today. And I see lovely chicken breast, beautifully butterflied, some delicious herbs. I see some dried quinoa. What is this all going to come together?
Thanks for calling it quinoa, not quinoa.
Quinoa.
It's so, like, people just calling things the most
I
random
have
names.
friends that all the time, so don't worry. Yeah.
All right, so I've made great friends with the guys at Grundig, and they've actually supplied our kitchen with this amazing FlexiCook stovetop and our ovens and some fridges and freezers.
And this is the new kind of system which everyone is using at the moment, is induction, which is such a great way to cook because it saves electricity.
It does.
It's really cool because it instantly heats, and I've really enjoyed the safety that comes with kids. I mean, a lot of the time, what my biggest worry about other pans is that they are still remain quite hot for long periods of time afterwards, and you can burn yourself without realizing it. These induction stoves don't do that.
That's very true. And how it works is there's an electromagnetic coil underneath these 3 flexi zones. And once you actually put down cookware on top of it, it creates a magnetic field. And the cookware heats up, not the actual stove.
Surface.
Which is really amazing. And there's 11 individual little cooking sections on the flexi top. And because of my amazing LCD screen, I can actually manage all 11 independently.
Oh, I see. So you can kind of have something really long, something very short. It's not like you're constricted.
Or 11 little pots and pans, you know what I mean?
Awesome. Cool.
So forget about Sunday lunch when you're actually like cooking the first thing and then you're stopping and you're cooking the next thing. Like literally Sunday lunch done all at once. So let's get this guy on. So I've got 3 zones actually on, but we're going to use this one for now. Get number 1 on, and let's pop it on number 7. What's really great is it actually heats up. For example, it'll cook a liter of water in half the time it would with normal gas. And you think gas is fast? That's crazy.
There's the reason because it gets to that temperature immediately because it's inducting in the pan. All right, let's
So,
get cooking with the recipe.
sure.
And while you get started with that, obviously you at home are going to want to get all the details for this recipe, I'm sure, to keep it in those records of yours. It's really simple. You SMS the keyword dinner to 33650. It'll cost you R1.50, and those free SMSs don't apply. I sound like a sort of stuck record when I say those things, but please, it's such a cool service. I do it every single evening. download the recipe to my mobile device, I get sent all the details, and I save it in a file away, so when I'm looking for cool things to do, I go like, oh, what did Clem make last week, and I can go and make it myself. So it's a really cool way to keep those recipes going.
Cool. So we got some free-range chicken breast in the bowl. I just added some ginger and some garlic. And I've got some turmeric.
Yep.
And I've got some smoked paprika.
Turmeric is the same as turmeric, right?
Turmeric. I call it turmeric. Yeah. That's going to go in.
Cool.
And then some seasoning. There's a little bit of salt and pepper. And you want to give it a good toss with a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. We're not going to worry with that right now.
You've got this one here.
Because I've got one that's marinated already. So Dan, let's just swap it over.
There you have it.
So you really want to let this sit in the marinade because the amazing flavors of the turmeric, the paprika, all the spices really penetrate through the chicken. So you want to get that intense flavor in there. So cool. We just put it on. It's already smoking. That's how fast it is. So let's get this guy down. That sizzle happening under a minute.
Oh my word.
That's
it's
crazy.
like the stove puts dig back in Grundig.
There
like
we go.
There we go.
Okay, cool.
So you can kind of see your chicken itself is nice and hot. I'm not going to lift it up too high because I obviously want it to stay inducting.
There we go. That's very true. So the heat comes from the contact between the stove. Great, got it. So now we're going to make this amazing, amazing quinoa salad. Now, normally what happens is when you're trying to cook a big piece of roast, right, you always seal it off. So you seal it off in the pan and then you put it into a roasting dish into the oven. Not anymore. So what I've got is I've actually got my normal roasting tin on the induction cooker. And we can actually heat it up. So let's actually go to number 2 over here. Just like that. And we're going to put it on, let's just go number 4. Right.
Just a medium heat.
No mess, no fuss, which is great because I hate doing dishes. Dry quinoa goes in, just like that. And then I've got some onion flakes, which are really great. A lot of amazing flavor comes with that. Cool. You can actually add the water already if you want.
Alrighty.
So you want to add enough water just to cover the quinoa.
Okay, got you. Oh wow, that's heated up already.
So
already
fast.
Sizzling.
Okay.
Just like that?
Just like that. Dried onion flakes go in. There we go, to mix it all.
So these are going to bring all the flavors together, I'd imagine.
And because we're keeping healthy, I've got some pumpkin seeds and some sunflower seeds. I almost forgot what it's called. Look at that, it's already simmering. This is really amazing.
Okay, so there we go. This is all for that nuttiness in there, which is delicious.
Salt and pepper, just like that. And I'm going to give you a spoon. I want you to also mix it up together.
Gotcha. And this is going to basically simmer off for about how long? How long does it take for quinoa
about 20
to get
minutes.
cooked?
So that's, you see it's already simmering, so I'm going to turn the heat down to nice and low. I would then cover it with foil and let it do its thing.
So it steams in there like you would a couscous almost.
It does, but not with a spoon.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend that ingredient. Not today.
Okay, so that simmers down, not with a spoon inside it, and it looks something like this when it comes out the other end.
Exactly. So let's serve this guy up. So nice and easy. Pop this to the side. I want to do some fresh, how about you do this for me? Some fresh mint.
Cool, where'd I put it?
Straight into the quinoa.
Oh, into it?
I like how you're about to garnish. I like that.
Oh, don't really know
Cool.
what you're talking about.
And then you can immediately start serving up.
Gotcha. So basically you want to create this nice delicious dinner. The whole idea behind using quinoa and obviously your chicken breast is that quinoa's got all those right kinds of energies you'd want in it. Obviously with the pumpkin seeds with all the nutrients. And then your chicken breast is there because it's high in protein. So you are kind of eating the right kinds of carbs, which I think is the most important
Let me move
part.
the plate to the center for you so we can get a nice view of that. There we go.
Is that enough quinoa for
You can go a little more. I think it's fine.
Cool.
And then I'm going to go with a little bit of parsley, just to be fancy.
You need to add some greens into that.
There we go.
Can I use your spatula?
Your tongs, you can.
Tongs.
And you can pop the chicken right on top.
Cool. There you
And
go.
that's how easy it is to prepare dinner tonight. I mean, it really is super efficient, super functional to be cooking on the Grundig Flexi Cook.
Love it.
My new best friend. Yeah.
And it's really cool because this is, if you're looking for trendy things to use for your home, this is one of the coolest little pieces of device, and it's going to be the ones that are going to be in kitchens in the future. So make sure you do use the induction stove. They're really, really awesome. I've got to play with them quite a lot. And if you guys have just tuned into the show and you want to know what the recipe details are, you SMS the keyword dinner to 33650. It'll cost you R1.50, and those free SMSs don't apply.
So,
Grundig, for a good reason.
we're going to take a short break, but after the break, we'll be turning our attention to the topic of the day. Should South Africa decriminalize the sex industry for the safety and rights of those who are making a living out of it? The conversation starts here on Afternoon Express when we get back. Don't go away.
A very warm welcome back to Afternoon Express. We're live on SABC3 on this Wednesday afternoon. Our phone lines are open, hashtag Afternoon Express across all of our social media platforms. Today we're discussing an industry that is very much stigmatized in South Africa. I'm talking about the sex industry, which is at present completely illegal. Yet as many as 182,000 women and men are making their living through this trade.
Absolutely. And we're joined today by Nosipho Vidima from the Sex Workers Education and Advocacy Taskforce. And their vision is to see a South Africa where people who choose to sell sex are able to enjoy it freely, right? And have freedom and rights and human dignity as the rest of the population. Welcome to the Loft.
Thank you very much for having me on the show tonight.
Sure. So Nosipho, it's going to be quite a hard conversation for us to have because there's so many different layers to this. I know everyone at home probably has different ideas and thoughts about this industry. So before we even get into tackling the different perspectives and the nuances around the sex trade, let's first talk about what Sweat itself does and why you guys chose to target this particular industry.
Sweat itself is an NGO that specifically advocates for the decriminalization of sex work, at the same time protecting those who are already in the industry under the criminal laws, who face a lot of stigma, a lot of violence, a lot of discrimination for health access, who cannot report cases by themselves because they are seen as criminals in South Africa. Sweat was started in 1994 by a male sex worker who realized the gap within the sex workers not getting condoms on the streets and the healthcare providers not wanting to do that. So he started an outreach program at the time. But then as outreaches were going on, he also realized that there's a lot of violence that was happening on the streets, and it was because of this criminality that is linked with the industry itself.
Yeah, and you're specifically focusing on decriminalizing. I mean, there's a lot of talk about legalizing the industry. So please explain to us the difference between the two and why it's important that there is a distinct rhetoric between the two.
So Sweat works very closely with sex workers, and these are sex workers who have actually visited countries where sex work is decriminalized, legalized, and fully criminalized, like South Africa. And with Sonke as a sex worker movement, there was a realization that sex workers tended to go towards decriminalization as a choice for themselves. Mainly because legalization will mean that there's a lot of red tape that is put around the industry, where people have to register within a certain body, where the police officers have more rights over what the sex workers do in their industry itself. There's going to be forced health tests that they will be subjected to, and basically it does not align with our constitution. Whereas with criminalization, it gives much more options for sex workers to mobilize together and own their businesses so that they can protect each other. It also means that labor laws can be put in place for those who will be working under management of somebody else. And basically, it just gives more freedom, it gives dignity, it aligns with our constitution. It's why we're calling for decriminalization instead of legalization, where people's bodies are going to be policed, where we're still giving much more power to certain individuals like police officers.
Let me just quickly go take a few steps back from this conversation towards why initially it was made illegal. And I really just want to put a caveat here that a lot of people mustn't apply their own moral or religious sort of viewpoints onto this industry, because I think we've all got our very own individual understandings of what we'd like to see happen. But government made a very clear call to make the industry illegal. What was do you know the reasons behind that and why we're trying to undo that?
So if you look at the laws that have been put around sex work in the past in South Africa, we're looking at laws that are coming back from the apartheid era. First, it was to actually stop the sex in between the color lines. And that's where the current laws that we're standing on are from. And we've moved so much forward when it comes to discrimination of a person because of race, of sexual choice, and yet we still have this law that has not been changed yet. And when we're talking about people's morals, it's I would hope that somebody would actually remove the sex from the sex work, but I don't know how to do that. If you stop seeing the sex and you're seeing a worker, then you'll realize that what we're trying to do is just provide a safe space for somebody to conduct their way of earning a living. And every worker deserves that in South Africa.
Yeah, and right now in South Africa, at what rate are sex workers being charged and given criminal records?
So we currently sitting where we have more than 11 women getting arrested in a night in a certain area.
In a night? Sure.
In a night, yeah. That would be in Joburg, you have more than 11. In Cape Town, sometimes you have 11, or you have more than 11, depending on the kind, on where the police decided to target in that night. And mostly they do it just to up their statistics of arrests, nothing more. But then what comes with it is the criminal record that will never go away. Even if the person chooses to actually leave the sex industry, that criminal record follows them for the rest of their lives. And that criminal record is not just a normal criminal record, it carries on stigma as well, which means that you never have a choice after that.
Yeah. Let's talk about choice. I think it's such a vital word to be using in the circumstance, because I mean you're trying to make it somebody's free choice to be able to say, I choose to enter into this industry because I want to make a living out of it. But my experience on engaging with this topic is a lot of people do not choose to enter into this industry, whether it because of absolute desperation and need to earn an income without a skill set, so it is the only way to break in, or whether it be by force. Whether it be trafficking, whether it be forced labor, whether it be for pornography or any kind of viewing content. Is it an industry that women would choose, or men in fact would choose, if it were something that were decriminalized or even legalized?
So it's actually being chosen, because we meet sex workers on a daily basis, and sex workers are choosing to go into the industry.
And they're not forced to. It's not circumstances always that's forcing them.
There are people that are forced. We're not going to deny that. But when we actually reach those that are forced, we actually intervene with the help of the Hawks, with the help of the police, with the help of A21. So we are working with structures that are put in place for South African citizens or non-citizens to be taken out of those situations. But then you have people that choose to go into the sex work industry. And by choice, it's because people look out their options at their hands. And instead of being a domestic worker or a waitress, a person will say, you know what? Being a sex worker is going to make me actually provide more for my family. It's actually going to put more on the table. It's going to allow me to pay more of my bills, and people choose that. So it is a choice.
Okay. Yeah. And we also, I don't know if we have much time right now to speak about the clinic that you guys have started. I find it interesting that you've got permission to run a clinic for an illegal industry, and I must applaud you for the work that you are doing to say we want to provide this kind of support. Do you mind giving us a quick little brief 30-second understanding of this clinic and how you managed to overcome the illegality of the industry?
So in South Africa, you are looking at sex workers that get a higher transmission rate of HIV. And obviously, our Department of Health would not want that to remain the fact or to remain the statistics. So in order for them to reach out to this community, they needed to also work with us, because we're in close connection. Yeah. And we needed to look at the health aspect of the person.
Right.
Not
so
at the
I must interrupt, because we want to get to we want to get to the health aspects in just a bit on the show, I'm very sure.
Yeah. But we'll be back with more from Nosipho a bit later on to discuss the prospect of decriminalizing the sex industry in South Africa. But after the break, we're turning our attention to health and wellness at home.
Indeed. We have a beauty blogger, Victoria Tatham, back to chat natural skincare trends. And if you've ever been the victim of a banking fraud scenario or a get-rich-quick scheme, which I know we've all received SMSs for, we'll be learning what to look out for after the break.
Nine, 10.
Watch out!
Welcome back to Afternoon Express. We're live on SABC3 on this Wednesday afternoon. Cast your minds back to that time where the friend gives you the phone call to tell you they've got the biggest scheme or opportunity for you to make the most amount of money in the shortest space of time. And we often come across investment opportunities like that promise high returns in a short space of time. Although some may seem legitimate, there are those that simply are an easy way for criminals to con people into parting with their hard-earned cash. How do you tell if you're being sold on a good investment or if it's just a get-rich-quick scheme? Well, our guest today is Kilyani Pillay, CEO of the South African Banking Risk Information Centre, or SABRIC as they're commonly known, and she's here to help us to know the difference. Welcome to The Loft.
Thank you, Dan.
You've shared wisdom with multiple platforms along this. You work alongside all the biggest banks to try and make this a safe space for consumers to engage in. So give us a brief understanding of where SABRIC came from and the work that you guys do.
Well, we're 15 years old this month, and we were established by the 4 major banks in South Africa. We actually are part of the banks. We don't just work alongside them. So basically owned by the 4 majors, but have 19 South African licensed banks that are part of the organization. And our key mandate is to assist banks fight organized crime. Okay. So we deal with end-to-end risk mitigation and, of course, support of prosecution and investigation to the police and the NPA as well.
Right. One of those happens to be these get-rich-quick schemes. I receive SMSs on the daily telling me how I can win money fast. I get emails, I get adverts, I get phone calls from friends and family who have found the most perfect scheme possible. Tell us about how people are getting sucked into these and how do we define what is really a good investment and what really is just a scheme?
Well, I think importantly what we're finding in South Africa is that there are 2 kinds of schemes or schemes that are actually scams that are running from time to time. And these are your Ponzi schemes and your pyramid schemes. Mm-hmm. So I think the key thing that people need to look out for is that everybody wants to make money and everybody wants to make money quickly. Mm-hmm. It's just not possible. And I think that's really very important for people to know. If it sounds too good to be true, obviously it is definitely not. Okay. It is not true. So what we're finding with the Ponzi scheme is that there would always be the offer of a quick return, of very high returns, of guaranteed returns, and that already should start sounding warning bells because there's no investment that is risk-free. There's always some bit of risk in it. They also would say to you that it's a lifetime opportunity. You've got to do this now. It's quick, the urgency around, when you have to make a decision. And these are all things that people need to look out for. So with the Ponzi scheme, people are asked to put in these investments. You don't get much information as to how the business model or the financial model works. And of course, initially, the people get paid these high returns. And then, of course, that in itself is used against that same person to lure them into investing more monies. Okay. So we're seeing this as a pattern. With the pyramid scheme, if you're looking at it as a pyramid, it starts off where they bring on people. And of course, there's returns to the people that have joined in. But the returns are based on you bringing on more people into the scheme. So as the layer sort of widens at the bottom, the money's used or coming from those people gets paid to the people above. And the problem is that when the bottom starts drying up, when you don't get enough people, then of course it's no longer this pyramid and the whole thing just falls flat and people have lost their life savings. Yeah. And it's really a terrible thing. Yeah. So.
But there are some good investments that we should look into Absolutely. To save money. So, what are the defining things you should ask? Like the main questions we should ask when we get a request?
Well, I think very importantly, and because time is always an issue, I think people need to be sure that the person they're dealing with is a registered financial service provider. Contact the financial services board, make inquiries about the particular person. Many of the authentic investment schemes are registered as well. So make those inquiries, especially because you're going to be putting in significant amounts of money, well, any money for that matter. So I think, just do that. If you're wanting to go into a particular scheme, run it by somebody else, get advice, but rather just take a little time, exercise some due diligence, do your homework before you actually put it in, because thousands of people have lost really huge amounts of money.
Sure, I'm learning a lot because those deals come and they always look very attractive and we're always desperate to make more money, and so it's really good tips and advice that you're giving us today. So thank you for coming to share your wisdom with us.
It's a pleasure, Dan.
I'm looking forward to some more conversations around this topic. So make sure you stay tuned to Afternoon Express. We're going to keep unpacking these financial services, and if you want any more tips and tricks, go to the SABRIC website and their Facebook page.
Now, we're finally in the month of August, also affectionately known as Women's Month. And from the 16th to the 17th of August, the annual Top Women Conference will bring together a host of iconic leaders to drive discussions around gender empowerment in business. And to stand a chance to network and rub shoulders with thought leaders and captains of industry, simply SMS the keyword Top Women, followed by your email address to 33650, and you could win 2 all-access passes to the conference. SMS are charged at R1.50 per SMS, and free SMSs do not apply. T's and C's can be found on the Afternoon Express website. So for more information on this fantastic event, visit www.topwomen.co.za.
Dermikelp for itchy, irritated skin and scalp conditions, including eczema.
Now, if you're already eating organically, recycling regularly, and using eco-friendly home detergents, then you're more than ready to take the plunge into natural beauty and skincare regimes. Like healthy food, natural beauty products aren't new, but have become hugely fashionable within the skincare industry. So we have beauty blogger Victoria Tatham back in the loft with us as we take a look at natural skincare trends. Welcome back, Victoria.
Thanks, Bonnie.
Lovely to have you with us.
Yeah, nice to be here. Thank you.
So a lot of people are making that shift to natural skincare products and are opting for those versus like heavy chemical products. Why is that?
I think it's a trend that we're seeing not only in skincare, we're seeing it in the decisions that people are making in their diets and the kind of cleaning products they use in their home. And it's just really actually knowing what ingredients you're putting on your skin rather than kind of putting a concoction of chemicals that you aren't quite sure where they originate from or what they're going to do to your skin.
Yeah. I mean, many people argue and say, oh, we've used those products for years and they were fine for me. What's all this rage about these new products? But what are the benefits of using natural skincare?
I think the main thing is that the skin is obviously the largest organ in our body. So it does take in a hell of a lot of whatever you put on it. And it's not a kind of a decision to say that you have to use only natural skincare. It's up to everyone, it's a personal decision. But there's definitely a lot to be said for putting kind of good ingredients on your skin and really absorbing, what is beneficial to your body. Yeah.
And obviously a good place to start is to know your skin really well and understand what it needs. But when now wanting to migrate from using chemicals to using more natural products, how should one go about this, and what should one keep in mind?
I think actually really having a proper look at your skin is the most important thing, and especially taking into account that our skin changes all the time. It's not one set way, it's not dehydrated all the time or oily all the time. It changes given the environment, given your hormones, given all sorts of things like that. So I always encourage my readers to properly have a look at your skin and get to know what your skin needs. Whether it's sleeping with a natural hydrating mask on overnight, or whether it's kind of putting more detoxifying clay on when you're a bit hormonal and spotty. It's just really taking a proper look at what your skin is needing.
Yeah. I mean, one of the big players in the natural skincare range is Dermikelp. Why are that a strong contender?
I think for me, Dermikelp, it's obviously speaking to specific allergies that people may see on their skin. And oftentimes people just kind of resign themselves to the fact that, oh, I've got a skin allergy, I'm going to be with this for the rest of my life. Whereas there is a brand like Dermikelp that has natural active ingredients. It's also cortisone free, which for me is a big thing in the sense that you can use it long term and kind of have peace of mind that it's not going to bother your skin. I've been using the Itch Relief shampoo and conditioner on my scalp, which has been fantastic in the winter months when it's a bit drier. And I've seen fantastic results. And knowing that it is, as I said, a natural active ingredient.
And the more natural it is, the more you want to use it.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Victoria.
Thanks for having me, Bonnie.
So beautiful skincare starts with proper care, and it's up to you to maintain a healthy-looking skin. Dermikelp contains 100% natural extract of kelp, which holds potent anti-inflammatory properties, offering a symptomatic treatment for itchy, irritated and inflamed skin. Gentle enough to use on all ages and skin types.
Thank you so much for that conversation happening there and the conversation happening online at the moment. So we promised you that we'll be taking all your comments on our phone lines, 021 430 9881. We're also taking all your comments on Facebook and Twitter with that hashtag Afternoon Express. And I've been browsing through some of the comments on Facebook, and thank you for sharing your opinions with us. You do have the freedom of speech to be able to share your thoughts on this topic too. And the question we're asking you today on Facebook is, do you think sex workers should receive the same legal rights as other workers? Share your thoughts with us. Vigorous Pius says, being one of the oldest professions in the world, I still don't get people's reservations about it. Laws should be put in place to protect these workers. Our constitution says that we are equal, and I would like to think that in a democratic society like ours would be more open-minded. Thanks for your strong views there. Zami says, is prostitution legal? The answer is obviously no, not right now. And she says, if it is, then there should be a legalization to protect both parties. The seller and the buyer's rights must be protected too. Wendy Ann Cox says, some of them don't have an option. It's the oldest trade in the world and they should legalize it. Stella Artois says, if sex workers are being legalized, then probably legal rights must be given to them. I think that's exactly what it means, Stella. So the minute it becomes legalized, legal rights are added to them. But as the conversation happened early on the show, we're speaking about the difference between decriminalization and legalization. Legalization means that people have no longer got a freedom of their own rights and abilities, whereas decriminalization just makes it not a criminal offense to go and do so, which it is currently. So that conversation is going to continue after these.
Thank you so much for joining us back on Afternoon Express on SABC3. Now, our topic for today is the stigmatized and misunderstood sex industry.
Indeed. So we're back on the couch with Nosipho Vidima from Sweat, an organization that has been advocating the decriminalization of adult sex work for years. And we started our conversation early on by speaking about the industry, where it's at currently, and how we're trying to move towards decriminalization. So we spoke about that difference between legalization and decriminalization. What benefits will there be for a sex worker who's now working in an industry that has become decriminalized?
So for one, we were talking about the fact that there's a criminal record, right? So if you decriminalize, it automatically means that you give more a chance of the criminal records being taken away, so that people have freedom of choice to exit the industry when they want to actually leave the industry or enter another industry, which is not viable right now, where a person's criminal record will not go away. Or if we actually take the partial decriminalization, where we say that a sex worker is not criminalized but the client is, you still don't take away the criminal record. So that's one of the options that you have. You're also putting in place labor laws. The existing labor laws that you have for every other worker, you're going to put into the industry. This means that there's going to be maternity leave for those that are working in these formal structures, whether it's brothels, whether it's escort agencies. It means that they can actually go on maternity leave, they can apply for leave, they can have working hours that are normal, that are regarded like everybody else. They can take leave for their children when they are sick and not be forced into certain acts. It automatically means as well that you're moving away from the discrimination that happens in the health system right now, where people will say that I need post-exposure paralysis because I was raped, but I don't want to open up a case because I'm a criminal. It means that now a healthcare worker will actually be mandated to give this service provision, and then you're looking at a reduced rate for HIV transmission as well.
What would you say to people who argue that why should taxpayers' money be spent protecting sex workers when they're the ones who are choosing an industry that is most prone to danger?
Basically, with decriminalization, we're asking for sex workers to be part of the taxpayers, to actually be taxpayers themselves, to contribute into the country's tax. So we're looking at an industry where a person can register their business as a trade, which automatically means that they contribute to the tax that's out there. So we're not asking money to be put into the sex work industry, we're asking for the sex work industry to contribute into the country. And already, if you're looking at criminalization, you're looking at the fact that with so much policing of sex work that is happening, a lot of the resources are wasted by police officers while they're chasing around sex workers that have not created a crime to anybody. You have court sessions that are given for sex workers where they could have been given to higher crimes in the country. So there is already a waste of resources, and we're trying to cap out that kind of waste resource, and saying that, okay, sex workers are willing to contribute, and we're reducing the policing expenses as well.
This fight has been going on for years. I mean, we've been having this discussion about government trying to legalize many things, from drugs to sort of like now sort of sex work. Help us understand how far we are in this journey. I mean, are we doing anything? Is it receiving resistance? Are we having to review the process? Is it a public discourse thing? What is causing the delay to get this decriminalized?
So recently, the South African Law Reform Commission's report that was overdue by more than 15 years came out. And it came out with recommendations for full criminalization, which of course is not beneficial to the country or to the 153,000 sex workers that are currently out there. It came out with the option of partial criminalization, where they're going to criminalize the client but not criminalize the sex worker. We have seen that this did not work where it was the other way around, where the client was not criminalized and it was just the sex worker. We did not see more prosecutions happening. We did not see a lot of sex workers moving more into the industry. We did not see any change. It has remained the same. So it is really not wise for the government to call for laws that we've seen not working. It is not wise that they're not listening to the sex workers out there. It is not wise that they're not looking at the evidence out there. The evidence is that decriminalization is going to solve a lot more problems than what they're offering on the table.
Absolutely. Well, it turns out we have a caller on the line. Siyabonga, hi. Welcome to Afternoon Express.
Hi.
Welcome to Afternoon Express. What's your comment or question?
I wanted to comment that I just want to say thank you for, giving us a reason to get on this topic, because as South Africans, we are not really into this. We just take it as this would never happen to our children, but it would. It affects us all. So I think that we should all be aware that this is happening, and we should all just be part of this as a community, and raise awareness that this is around. And I'd just like to say thank you to you guys for making this aware. And I am 100% behind this whole point that sometimes it has to be legalized, because not everything has to be under the law now. This is the 21st century, and I believe that if it's not under the law, then it's illegal. So I think it should be legalized, or it should be allowed. It depends on what jurisdiction, because if you think about it, nowadays you have children, 16, 15, who are doing this.
And younger,
so
even,
we should also, give it a reason to legalize, but we should also keep an eye on who we are legalizing it to.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for that. That's really helpful.
So
I appreciate the phone call. I think
what are some of the protection of sex workers and their health and their safety is good for all women?
Can you repeat that?
Well, what of the thought that us decriminalizing sex work and protecting their rights and their health and making sure that they're safe is good for all women?
Yes, it is a benefit
Right.
to all women. I mean, we're in a country where we're fighting for every discourse towards gender equality. So if you decriminalize, you're looking at gender equality because you're looking at sex workers that are more empowered to report cases that Sia has just talked about. The cases where younger women are being forced into the industry by pimps that are predominantly male. So yes, you are benefiting mothers, you are benefiting the younger child who will not be forced into the industry without anybody realizing it. You are benefiting the person at home whose partner uses the services of a sex worker, because it means they're going out there into a protected space. They won't be asked for bribe by police officers that are corrupt. There is going to be condoms that is going to be used, so there is no increase of HIV coming into your house. You are looking at mothers that are in the sex work being more protected to provide for their families without that discrimination that sometimes follows the kid whose mother is a sex worker.
Yeah, wow. Listen, this conversation's been riveting, and I'm sure everyone at home is having a great time, and I'm sure you're going to use that hashtag Afternoon Express, and I encourage you to do so and to continue phoning through to our phone line 021-430-9881. I'll tell you why, because I know everybody's got a very particular viewpoint on this topic, and it's important to get multiple voices. So thank you so much for coming to join us on the show today, and after the break, we're going to be continuing the conversation around this industry in South Africa. But joining us is Marlise Richter from Sonke Gender Justice, who works across South Africa to promote gender equality and to prevent domestic and sexual violence. So continue to share your thoughts with us. Hashtag Afternoon Express. The conversation continues after these.
You're back with us live on SABC3 Afternoon Express. Sonke Gender Justice is an NGO that works across the continent with governments and civil society to promote gender equality and put an end to domestic and sexual violence.
Yeah, so we're joined now by Marlise Richter, who is head of Sonke's Policy Development and Advocacy Unit. And it's very good to have you with us in the loft today. So as a contrast to what we spoke about, or perhaps a support to what we spoke about before the break and with our previous guest, what does Sonke do?
Sonke is a gender-based violence organisation, and we focus on ways of preventing violence and providing adequate services for survivors of violence. And we realised that the criminal law in relation to sex work in South Africa is a driver of violence against women, but also against men and transgender people. So our advocacy project is about safeguarding sex worker human rights and lobbying for the decriminalisation of sex work. So we use the media and various communication channels to talk about sex work and to raise the topic as we are doing this afternoon.
What is the link between violence and criminalisation?
So we know when a profession like sex work is criminalised, that you drive it underground, and that it means that for people who work in it or who are surrounding the industry, it becomes very difficult to report other instances of abuse or crimes, as well as using police resources to then focus on bringing people, for example, in the sex work industry, out to be arrested and prosecuted, when those sources could be used much better in terms of other crimes, like gender-based violence.
Sure. So that lays a very nice foundation for this conversation that's been had at the moment. And so I thought we'd go straight to the phone lines to get to speak to you guys at home. So Jared from Durban, welcome to Afternoon Express. What is your question or comment for our guest?
Yes, hi. Thank you very much for having me on your show.
It's an absolute pleasure.
More or less, it's not a question. It's rather a statement I would like to make. You know, in South Africa, we always rank women and children as the highest, and obviously in terms of fighting for the right. But don't you think by obviously encouraging, you know, and let's not water it down, it's not called sex working, it's actually called prostitution. And the thing is, with us as a human race, we seem to obviously water down certain elements. In other words, you know, a person that steals a wallet is known as a thief to you and I, but obviously to the Oxford Dictionary is now known as a kleptomaniac. And the thing is, what I'm trying to make the suggestion is that we always seem to be watering down what it is actually called. And by now us encouraging such behavior, rather than now introducing a system to support women, obviously in this type of working field, now we're encouraging them, and obviously they are demoralizing themselves in this type of situation. So the next statement to this is, what happens now if a pedophile now decides obviously to fight for his rights to obviously rape a little boy? Where do we draw the line of what is right and wrong? And that is the reason why we need some sort of support structure that is called obviously the rules of South Africa. Now, we are obviously fighting against the rules of South Africa. How are we going to obviously decide what is wrong and right?
Jared, thank you. Very good question.
Thank you for your question.
I think let's speak about the elephant in the room. Morality versus what sex work is. When do we draw objective moral truth from scenarios like this? When do we say that it, in fact, shouldn't be an industry people should choose to enter into? And how do we tackle that moral decision that Jared's talking about?
And something interesting Jared asked is, why are we calling it sex work instead of prostitution?
Let me start with the second question first, where sex work, where we use the term sex work, we relate it to work and as a labour issue, and where we then say the criminal law needs to be reduced or be removed. So it's a political term when I use it. International organisations like the World Health Organization, UNAIDS and others have decided that we should use the word sex work because prostitution is discriminatory. So we're actually following international guidelines when we use that term. The first question had to do with sexual morality and where should the law, and specifically the criminal law, be involved in the moral choices that we make around sex. And I think South Africa's history and its very traumatic apartheid history plays an important role here. We know that under apartheid, there were very strict laws about having sex across the colour bar or having same-sex relationships. And that was in the context of a very repressive nationalist government where there was very clear ideas of what was wrong and what was right for the population. And we used the criminal law to enforce that. We now look at that in 2017 and say, but that is unethical, it's against human rights. And we've struck those laws down. We've decided that same-sex relationships are not to be discriminated against, and sex across the colour bar went as soon as we had a democracy. But yet we have this old law from 1957, the Sexual Offences Act, that's the same set of laws that still make sex work, which is adult consensual sex, illegal.
Yeah.
So I'm saying we need to learn from that history.
Okay, but then with that moral choice, I mean, you've also got people as the population who form quite a large number of the population who have got very strong viewpoints on where sex should be used and where it shouldn't be used. And, you know, the question always comes up, would I encourage my daughter to enter into an industry where she gets to sell her body for money? And the question then becomes, is there a blanket moral truth around what sex is used for and shouldn't be used for? Because by having the industry available, my husband, who happens to be a Catholic person, is now going to go out onto the streets and perhaps find somebody, be tempted into the scenario, and then break down my entire family unit.
So the abolition argument, and that's the argument that South Africa's current laws are based on, is that if you criminalise sex work, which in South Africa all aspects of sex work are criminalised, the idea is to try and abolish the industry. And we know that's not worked. So the sex work industry is thriving. The criminal law is just making it more dangerous. So you can believe as a personal conviction that sex work is wrong or that it's a sin or that it's evil, but you can still see that the criminal law is not doing what you want it to do, which is, in that instance, reducing the sex industry.
Okay.
We are saying that you can still believe that, but you could see that taking the criminal law away would be much safer for everyone.
Right. We do have a caller on the line. Brendan, welcome to Afternoon Express.
Hi there, thanks Bonnie, and hi there Danilo. It's a pleasure to be on here. I'm a very regular watcher of the show.
Fantastic, thank you Brendan.
Thank you for calling in.
I just have let's keep this quickly. I want to say to all the individuals out there who are watching the show and simply turning up their noses and throwing around the word prostitution like a dirty rag, 2 words for them today: ignorant kills. If we simply sit on our couches and talk at tea about how dirty prostitution is, we're not going to change anything. I think we need to stand up, get active, legalize it so that we can monitor it, get condoms out there, and let people know what prostitution actually is. It's not a crime. People are doing it. Some people aren't doing it by choice. Let's get active. Let's not throw this connotation around. Let it be what it is, and then let's see what we can do to alter it and change it.
Yeah, Brendan, thank you very much for that comment.
So
It's a nice contrast to our previous conversation. So,
is there an inequality between how female sex workers and male sex workers are viewed? I mean, men are seen as gigolos and as being more in control, and they're seen as escorts, and then the women are just branded as
prostitutes,
sluts and prostitutes and that.
I think that sexual double standard is very much at play in the way that at least popular culture views sex work and the way that female sex workers are often portrayed as opposed to the gigolos that you referred to. We know that from the data in South Africa that the vast majority of transactions happen between female sex workers and male clients. And about 90% of our industry are female sex workers, with about 5% being male sex workers and another 5% being transgender. So the gender dynamics is much more complex than just female sex worker and a male client, and that the debates don't always take that into account.
Okay, in terms of where the industry is moving towards, I mean, a lot of us are trying to say that besides my moral understanding, there's a lot of it's going to happen regardless, and so I want to protect human dignity, which for me is more important than trying to fix my moral understanding and belief on a particular scenario. And you guys are trying to say, yes, there's dignified, every human being is dignified. And what about that low-end industry? That industry is being forced. I mean, I'm talking human trafficking, I'm talking people being forced into pornography, people being forced to be on web cameras, fondling themselves or whatever it needs to be in an industry. And what are we doing about those scenarios? Do we want to try and see that move towards a slightly higher end clientele where it's slightly more professional and looked after as opposed to this forced, dirty underground industry?
I think that's a good question, and one of the first steps of uncovering that is to have these conversations. So I'm really happy for viewers to be having these debates on social media and in the phone-ins. I think what's very important is when we use the term sex work to acknowledge it's adult consensual sex. We're not talking about child prostitution, and we're not talking about trafficking. Trafficking is akin to sexual slavery. There's no component of consent. When we talk sex work, we're talking about consent and we're talking about agency, and we say people are making choices even though it's under constrained circumstances. And some of the scenarios that you mentioned, I would say the consent is not an element, and that those should remain a crime.
Okay, so it should be consensual. I think that's the most important thing.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Where do we stand in terms of the rate at which sex workers can access healthcare?
Yeah, I think that's one of the big tragedies of the criminal framework, is the fact that it makes sex work sex work is really hard to access healthcare services. And where we know with the data available that one of the key components that we can enforce that will reduce the HIV epidemic is to decriminalise. To decriminalise, take the criminal law away from adult consensual sex, and that would have a public health benefit.
Marlise, thank you very, very much for this conversation, and to, in fact, all of our guests for coming to join us on the show today. What an interesting chat.
Yeah.
I just want to reiterate that you are allowed to have differing views. Please, by all means, share your thoughts with us. #Afternoon Express. It's important to have the conversation, more important than it is for us to brainwash you into believing what you should believe. So please make sure you share your thoughts with us on social media throughout the afternoon today.
Yeah, and it's always positive for us to listen to each other and hear each other out.
Indeed.
So what's happening tomorrow on the show?
Tomorrow's going to be fashion and beauty,
fashion,
street style.
fashion.
Magenta's going to be here. It's going to be absolutely epic. We'll see you then. Good night. Bye.
Search for a home on any device, anytime, anywhere. Private property, a home for everyone.
Afternoon Express, made with love by Clover.
Another feel-good production.